For the first time since the Open era began, Chicago and 9Lives, but specifically Chicago, missed out on his first main event. That leaves only Reddles, Atomic, and First Killer as perfect for main events in the Open era. That stat per direct, and obviously a very poor result here for 9Lives, who went top 6 in Open 4. In the first split, that they almost qualified for Birmingham there. They were at least in contention until they totally fell apart, and after that result in Open 3, they dropped Kofer. They try out a couple players. I think Talk was rumored, and ultimately they end up going with Zanil here. Top 6 in that Open 4 look pretty good at spots. You know, they had battle against teams like Na, but now here in the Group Swiss for Open 5, they end up dropping to some teams that they definitely should be beating. We're watching them here going up against CMK, which is Oath, Repeat, and Swaz. Oath, probably the most notable player here. Swaz, I believe, was he on Treehouse last season? But they end up losing this series 3-0 to start the day, and just a slow start for them overall. They dropped to LSR as well, Snaz, Roxers, and Lunar Brawler. To be honest with you guys, 3 players that I do not know a lot about. Lost to Simtalk +1 there as well, which is a pretty dangerous team. Ironically, Talk being one of the players that they opted to go without here. And I kind of just want to talk through my thoughts as we're watching Chicago point of view here. So they're going to go down 2-0. Hey, I use that boost or that goal explosion all the time. But just some thoughts here for what this means, not only for this team as it stands currently, but also historically. And a lot of this is going to center around Chicago, who since Season 6 has become one of the most well-known, notable players in North American RLCS history. That being said, even probably a first ballot Hall of Famer here for the RLCS. Won a major with G2 there. Has made 21 S-tier events over the course of his career, and is 7th all time in Worlds games played, World Championship games played. That is. I put out a funny stat recently about him being the most demoed player of all time in RLCS history, and that obviously has very little to do with like how often he's demoed, and has much more to do with just how much he's played. I mean, that's one of those funny stats, like, you know, LeBron James has the most turnovers in history. It's like, well, yeah, if you're going to play that many games, you're going to have some funny ones like that. But, you know, I think this is due to a changing of the guard for a couple of reasons, internally and externally. Externally, this is just how it goes, right? Eventually, players are going to end up getting caught up to by the rest. You know, you replace the veterans for the new guys, as we're kind of seeing here with a bunch of players who we definitely don't have as much film on as players like Chicago and Hoxer, and even Zanil for that matter, who's been around participating on main event rosters for quite some time, and that was an absolute slot right there to go down 4-1. 2 minutes left here in this first game. But this is just how it goes, right? Kofer and Frosty and Diaz and you know, Talk even for that matter, are going to end up eventually superseding the guys who have been getting it done for a really long time. And that's partially what's happening here. I do think it's important to just caveat this and say we're not going to overreact, right? Like, again, this is still a very good roster who made a top 6 last time around. This happens, right? Carmine Core missed a main event last season. Granted, they were losing to you know, some very respectable teams like, you know, Suh, and who's the other one? Was it Suh and Fast Forward? That doesn't feel right. Certainly Suh. But this is a little bit different than that. There was a point in time where the name tags on this side of the field, you know, world champion Chicago, who's going to tie it up really quick here. A world champion would scare the players on the other end of the pitch, but you reach this point where, you know, I mean, look at a team like Dopamine over in Europe. It's like, oh my goodness, K-Dop and Astral, that doesn't carry the same weight that it once did there. And internally, obviously, we all knew that Zanil was a talent downgrade from Kofor, but you hope that they could still get it done. And I think what we learned is not only is Kofor just excellent, but also he did so much for this team offensively, and Zanil is more defensive. He doesn't have the same offensive pop that a player like Kofor gives you, even what a player like what Talk might give you. And you know that's the decision that they made. As this game one here has become really competitive here all of a sudden, back and forth action. But I just I think one of the hardest things to come by in the RLCS is consistency. There's some games and some series where you watch Zanil and you're like, gosh, Zanil, those alpha wheels, maybe there's something here, but he just can't replicate that series in, series out. And I think that's kind of an issue in that top six. I was very, very impressed by Hoxer specifically and what he was doing offensively. And I remember thinking, like, you know, that's a great result, but you're going to need more from your other guys as we're actually going to find overtime here. This is my first time rewatching this series. And it was the same way I felt with Deleted Gaming to begin last season, where Andy was at, like, you know, 85% goal participation, and you're like, crazy result from Andy, but you're really probably going to need some more from Wavy and Gyro there. And I just don't think that Zanil is that player. I think he can be your third on a really good team, but here they just need more from him than what he's been able to give so far. And also, again, like, early days. The interesting thing about this season is that LCQ before the World Championship, where you can actually you can still make it. Like, that's probably how 9Lives, I hope, is looking at this. Is it's like, look, let's just be as good as we can for Open 6. Try and learn from our mistakes, attack as strong as we can, and just try and qualify for LCQ, because, you know, anybody can do it. And I still think Hoxer is a very good player. Chicago, an excellent player. I had him in my top 50 when I did my big board. And, you know, I think that they can figure something out with Zanil here, where, you know, they still have Fireburner and Tournament as their coaches. So a lot of guys with a lot of experience who can figure this out and hopefully look a little better than they were able to here. But I do think that this is an interesting result. We were just talking about this on the Shift cast, where you kind of get this change of the guard, you know, and you start to see some of our players drop out. You know, JNAP's just recently retired. Of course, all of the gas guys, Garrett, AJ, Squishy. Eventually, we're going to get to a point where we just don't see these players anymore. I talked about this and being having a sobering moment with Ninjas in Pajamas, missing out on Birmingham. You know, how many more Itachi appearances are we going to have? If Dignitas don't qualify, you know, how many more Jorius worlds are we going to end up seeing? I'm not saying that it's none. I'm not saying that it's anything. I'm just saying, you know, the careers of RLCS players will continue to probably expand as the game gets, you know, more legitimate and more prize pools and eyeballs come to it. But you're not guaranteed anything at all. And I'm trying to enjoy these players while we can, especially on this side, Chicago and Hoxer, who we have so much history with. Even going back to last season with Space Station, that G2 roster with Atomic and JNAPS is one of the most storied and exciting of all time, especially in North American Rocket League. And, you know, JNAPS is now coaching for Shopify. And Atomic, just the unsung hero who is the leader in so many all-time stats between North America and even like RLCS all-time LAN World Championship stuff. I was just looking at that for another video that I'm producing here. And we're 3 minutes into overtime. That was a classic pass. And there's some irony in the fact that that's how they end up losing this game one here, because this is textbook old school G2 passing. Chicago on the sidewall, knows that he has a guy middle, tries to lace one, and Oath just totally calls it. He's been around the block for a second, and that's how they're going to lose this game one. They end up getting 0-3'd in this series as Chicago, 4 saves. Everybody's getting involved here. But look at those shot totals, especially for Oath and Repeat, just really getting on the board quite a bit there. Oath almost 1,000, goes for the savior and the striker there with the 3 goals. Guys, one last thing as I wrap up this video, thank you so much for continuing to check out the content. If you've been following for a while, thank you for your patience. This is the first week in a new job, so trying to find my footing around that. And if you're new, there's a lot of old breakdowns that I hope that you go back through and check out. So hope you guys are doing well out there. Very excited for the Rocket League that we have coming up this weekend. And until next time, guys, take it easy.